山本さん、ロングタイムノーシーです。どうですか最近。いや、オフィスワークが。
Have you heard of Dōgen? He seems really good at Japanese.
Well, a lot of people say they know Japanese, but when it comes to it, they don't actually speak it. They just know a few sentences from anime.
No, like I'm serious. He seems really good at Japanese.
Alright then, I'll check him out later.
Babe, are you good?
This Dōgen guy, he's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I told you he was good at Japanese.
Yeah, it's not just good at Japanese, this guy's like, his pitch accent is freaking perfect.
Well, I'm glad you like him.
No, but literally, like, listen to his voice, it's like, isn't it sexy?
Yeah?
He's amazing, this guy's amazing, he's like it's like perfect Tokyo accent.
Should I be worried?
No, literally, like, it's Japanese, he's like a freaking Japanese. He's a Japanese. Okay, listen. That mini intro sketch that I created together with my girlfriend, that's actually how it happened. That's how I got to know who Dōgen was. And if you don't know who Dōgen is, well, I need to tell you. So Dōgen is this, I don't know, he's a content creator on YouTube. He also has a Patreon page, and I'll tell you more about that. He has a Twitter account, and he makes this Japanese comedy in Japanese, but he also is a Japanese teacher, and he specifically focuses on pronunciation and pitch accent. And I'll tell you what these are in a minute. But he is a phenomenal speaker of Japanese, and I'd like to say that as a teacher, because generally speaking on this channel I talk about Japanese history, warfare, armor, weapons. That's what I mostly focus on the Japanese side, and then of course I talk about the other things I talk about on this channel, but that's what I mostly do. But you do know that in my everyday life I'm a Japanese teacher, so I teach Japanese, I have a degree in Japanese, I have lived in Japan and do speak Japanese. However, this guy, literally, he could be my mentor. I would consider him to be my mentor because his understanding of Japanese phonetics and linguistics is mind-blowing. Now, why am I telling you all of this? Well, first of all, it's because I've become a fanboy of Dōgen, but not really because of that. Here's the thing. In the comments section, sometimes I get a lot of very nice comments from you noble ones that I really, really appreciate. But I also get the occasional hater, and that tells me, whatever, you know about Japanese history, but your Japanese pronunciation is really bad, or your Japanese is definitely not your strong suit. And here's the thing, I think these people, haters are going to hate, of course, but I'm just saying that these people are not assessing me the right way. And where I'm going with this is the fact that when I'm speaking about Japanese history, I don't use the pitch accent. And the pitch accent being that in Japanese there is, you can study pronunciation, so how to pronounce consonant and vowels, but in Japanese, even though it's not a tonal language like Mandarin Chinese, they do have kind of notes, like low notes and high notes, and you need to know when to go up and when to go down. Like, for example, you've got the word for God, that is kami, so it's from high to low, and then you got the word for hair, for example, or paper, which is kami, it goes from low to high. And this is really something that not a lot of Japanese speakers know. A lot of people just approximate it, but I think it makes it for a much better speaker of Japanese to actually know how they pronounce it. It gets you a lot closer to a native. Now, I think people are judging my pitch accent when I speak English, and I'd like to be properly assessed because I know that my Japanese is not perfect. I never said that my Japanese was perfect. Of course, I lived there for 4 years. I have studied it at university, so I'm fluent in Japanese. I'm confident when I go to Japan. I can speak to people, I can understand people, but I'm not saying, and I did study the pitch accent somewhat, never to the level of Dōgen, but I did study the pitch accent. But I know that perhaps there are some things that I don't pronounce right, perhaps there are some bad habits that I picked up while I was in Japan, because if you don't study deeply, the pitch accent can be extremely complicated. And I think that the right person to assess my Japanese would be Dōgen, because he is incredible. And in fact, with this video, I'm really hoping that Dōgen sees this video. First, because I want to tell him, Dōgen, you're amazing. Like, literally, you have my full respect. You're an incredible linguist. But not only for that, but because I think that I really want to know what could be some areas of improvement for my Japanese pitch accent and pronunciation, and generally speaking, my Japanese accent. And I think he's the right person to do that. I'm happy to listen to constructive constructive criticism, because I think that that's the best way to improve. But when I read people commenting on my Japanese, it's either like fans of mine who tell me, wow, you're so amazing, but they don't really speak Japanese, and of course I appreciate, but they don't really know how to judge. Then you've got Japanese people, but you know how Japanese people are. The moment you say konnichiwa, arigato, they'll be like, wow, nihongo jouzu, and so that doesn't really count. I mean, I appreciate, of course, it's very nice, they're polite, but they would tell anyone that who just says a couple of words in Japanese. And the haters that I just mentioned, I don't think they're being fair when they tell my Japanese is bad, or my pitch accent is bad, or my pronunciation is bad, because they're listening to these words used in a vacuum while I speak English. And I'd like to give you an example of what I mean, because people could be like, well, Metatron, but why don't you just pronounce words in Japanese properly if you really know how to do it? And here is the reason. Okay, so here is what a normal history lesson sounds like when I'm speaking normally, and then I'll do it with the actual Japanese pitch accent, and you'll see why I don't use the pitch accent when I'm using English. Here it is. Today we're going to talk about the samurai, and you've got two samurai. One samurai has got a katana, and one samurai has got a yari and a yumi. So who's got an advantage? Well, the samurai with the katana is a disadvantage against the guy with the yari and the yumi, because he has got a range advantage over him. Right, now let's do it with the pitch accent. Today we're going to talk about the samurai, and we've got two samurai, one with a katana and one with a yari and a yumi. Now the guy with the katana has a disadvantage against the guy with the yari and the yumi, because the guy with the yumi and the yari has a range advantage. Now you see why I just don't do it, but now people are assessing my Japanese pronunciation based on when I use Japanese words in English, which is problematic. I mean, when you're teaching Japanese in English, that's fine to sort of pause and pronounce it right so people listen to the pitch accent, but when you're just speaking about history, I think it would be a problem, because people would start calling me obnoxious, pretentious, and it would be probably distracting. But still, I would love if Dōgen could assess my Japanese. Of course, if he can't, Dōgen, if you can't, you're busy, you're working on your project, don't worry about it. Just no worries. I appreciate you watching this video if you do. But if you do have the time to assess my Japanese, I know that you have a series, and Dōgen has a series where it's called like Japanese teacher rates your Japanese or something like that, and he gives hints. He listens to people speaking Japanese, usually students of his, and then he checks out and perhaps he tells them, oh no, it's not kyoiku, it's kyoiku, and he like corrects their pitch accent. And I think that that's fantastic. Like when I watch that, I'm like, wow, I would love Dōgen to assess my Japanese pitch accent like that. So I have a second channel, and I'm actually telling you noble ones as well. I've just created a second channel, and it's a channel entirely in Japanese with English subtitles. When I play Japanese games, I talk about my experience in Japan. I might actually have Japanese lessons in English, so it's going to be a little bit of a mixture, but it's mostly focused on to Japan and Japanese entertainment. So if you're interested, please check it out. And I've got a video, and it already has subtitles. 僕の一番好きなレベルです。病院終了条件災害委員からの脱出。はい、わかりました。よし、こちらはベラちゃんです。このゲームの囚人キャラクターの唯一の子供です。並びに10歳の女の子でアメリカ人です。で、彼女の後ろに窓がありますが、この窓から逃げられません。ということで、正面にあるからどこに行ったらいいかわからないんですけれども、とりあえずここまでは無事でよかったです。マジかよ。Now, Dōgen-sama, if you do have the time, it would be fantastic for me if you could assess my Japanese through that video, because that's a video when I'm actually speaking Japanese as I play a game. So I could record like a couple of sentences that I've memorized and said a million times, and I know that the pitch is right. I want it to be a fair assessment. So I think to be realistic Japanese, I shouldn't really think about it too much, and that's perfect because I've got like a murderous nurse zombie running after me with a knife, and I need to get away from her, and I'm trying to speak and being entertaining at the same time. So I think that that's a perfect video to do that. So I will leave a link in the description below. If Dōgen does decide to check out my Japanese through that video, yeah, the link is there. You can use the video if you want. You can cut pieces. You can even make a video response and say, this Muppet, you can call me Muppet, by the way. Check out this Muppet, he mispronounced this word, don't do that. Or maybe you could say, you know, this Muppet actually managed to pronounce these words right. And I'd like to say, any success, any word that I pronounce with a right pitch accent, partially is because I lived in Japan and so I kind of listened to Japanese a lot, but it's also mostly a success story for Dōgen's Patreon, because Dōgen has a Patreon page and he has got like a lot, like something in the lines of 115 videos in there, and the majority of those posts are about pitch accent and pronunciation. And I kid you not, I watched all of them twice. Maybe I shouldn't say that publicly. No, but listen, if you are one of my noble ones and you were thinking, hey, I'd like to support Metatron's Patreon page where I got like an extra $10 a month. If you are a Japanese student, don't give me that money, give it to Dōgen. Like, I mean it. I'm being like 100% crystal clear. If you're studying Japanese, you should totally get the subscription, become one of Dōgen's patrons. I am one of his patrons, and he has got some incredible, like $10 a month for what he offers is nothing, and I mean it. This guy is a pro, and he teaches Japanese pitch accent in a way that it's easy to understand, even though it's an extremely complex topic, and he makes it's professional, academic, but easy to access at the same time. I have no idea how he managed that. But again, no pressure on Dōgen. If you watch this video, you just want to leave me a comment, I appreciate that. But if you do want to check out my Japanese video, perhaps even make a video about it, a video response to that would be fantastic. And I'd like to also say big hello to Matt versus Japan, who is another incredible speaker of Japanese. Very, very good accent, high fluency. He also sounds very Japanese. Like, these two guys sound Japanese, which is incredible. Not only Japanese, but Hyojungo, like literally Tokyo Japanese. So if any of you noble ones are studying Japanese, keep in mind my second channel, because I will be posting Japanese lessons, but most importantly, keep in mind both Dōgen and Matt versus Japan, incredible Japanese teachers and Japanese speakers. Now, this was a little bit of an unusual video, not really the regular content I make on this channel. And just to give him a little bit of background to Dōgen, I'm Italian, so you'll have to keep that in mind as you perhaps watch my video, if you do, because perhaps you will notice some mistakes that I make that perhaps might come from the fact that I'm Italian. I'm not sure, I mean, it's up to you. You're the expert here, but I just wanted you to know that. And thank you so much for watching if you are. And noble ones, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching, and remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Goodbye.